Hello everybody, today's project is this MTD Yard Machines push mower. It's got a Briggs and Stratton engine with Pulsa Prime type style carburetor, and the problem that it's having is that it won't start. It has fuel, it has oil, I checked those, there are spark plugs attached. And the primer works. It shoots the fuel into the carburetor, but it won't fire. So I've already troubleshot it. I took the air filter off and sprayed some starter fluid underneath the air filter into the carburetor, and it started and ran for about a second and then died. So that's a surefire indication that there's a carburetor problem on this guy. So I got you up on the lawnmower lift. So to get at this carburetor, I have to take this top shroud off. There were two 5/16 screws, or sorry, 1/4 inch head screws. Take those off. Flathead screwdriver, I already loosened that off. You pop the whole air filter off. This bottom side actually doesn't look too bad. You can just wash that out with some soap and water, soap and warm water, and that'll be okay. And that takes us here to the carburetor. So these carburetors are super simple, guys. So you got a couple of springs for governor springs. Here's your governor arm here. So just make sure you check the condition of those springs. Mine look like they're in perfect condition. And the primer, I really like the primer system on this with the primer bulb. And you could see it actually shoots the fuel right in. There you go. So I love how these primer systems work. Usually 3 times to prime is actually accurate, unlike some of the other primer systems. So what I'm going to do is show you how to take this off. Basically it involves taking off these 2 springs here to get started, and I usually take them off the governor arm here, and I'm not going to be able to do this one-handed with the camera, so I'm going to have to put you back. But you take those ends off and leave the other ends on, and then there's going to be I think this is a 1/2 inch bolt and a 3/8 bolt, and that whole tank and carburetor will come off together. So sorry about blocking your view here, but there's no real easy way to do this, and sometimes you actually need needle nose pliers. Alright, there's one. And there's 2 springs. Again, just leave those here. Those will stay with that assembly here. And this is a 1/2 inch. Switch to 3/8. Alright, and this guy will slide right off. Now there is linkage right here that once it comes off, I'm going to have to remove this linkage from the throttle to the governor arm, and that's just a Z-bend. So just like any other Z-bend, you just push it down and rotate the whole thing. Alright, so this one I'm going to push down, and then here we go, rotate, and it comes off. So here's the carburetor on top of the fuel tank. On this back side, sometimes this little rubber gasket that's up in here and the retainer clip actually stays on the intake tube, and that's fine as well. Just make sure you take that off and put it back on when you're done. Alright, I'm going to move you over to the bench and show you how to clean one of these Pulsa Prime carburetors. Alright, just before we head over to the bench here, I'm just going to show you, because the lighting is a little awkward over on the bench. So you got 5 Phillips screws holding on this carburetor. So my next step will be to separate the carburetor from the fuel tank after I drain the fuel. Alright guys, so I drained the fuel out of the tank here. Some of this debris is probably from the outside of the tank, but the color of it is like a lime green color, and I'm not sure if the last people put some sort of stabilizer in the fuel or if this is actually a fuel oil mix. I'm not too sure, but this fuel doesn't look very good, so obviously I'm going to get rid of that. I might use it to with a paintbrush and kind of clean off all of the outside of the carburetor here before we get started, and that's probably what I'll do. So I just take an old paintbrush and then I just kind of get all the crusty stuff off. Actually put my fuel cap back on so none of that gets in back into the tank. I use carb cleaner on that side, guys, but I try not to just because carb cleaner eats away a lot of rubber components. So this guy, you can take that off, run the bulb. It's not good for that stuff, so it's not bad idea to clean the outside of the carburetor before you dive into it. So I'm on the outside, inside, the inside makes things worse. After you clean out the carburetor, it makes sense to do the outside afterwards. When that point you're going to clean all that junk from the outside back to the inside. Alright, so that should be good enough. I'm going to go blow this off with some compressed air, and then we'll be back. Alright guys, I'm back. It's looking much cleaner on the outside here. Now, like I was telling you, there's 5 Phillips screws. I just like to use a screw gun or cordless drill just to loosen them all off. Alright guys, now underneath here there's going to be a diaphragm and a gasket. Alright, a lot of times if you're already in here, it's probably not a bad idea to replace the diaphragm and the gasket, because that, I find, is a good portion of the problem when you're dealing with these Pulsa Prime carburetors, and they're pretty cheap. So I think you can buy the whole kit probably for a couple bucks, $5 at most, I would think. Okay, so here's your carburetor. Here's the pickup tube. Alright, so fuel gets sucked up here into the carburetor and goes through a series of holes and flapper valves and stuff. There's a flapper here into this float bowl. This is the float bowl, and then this is where the fuel goes in to the carburetor to mix with the air. Now there is a spring here, so be very careful of that. Usually they don't come off. They're on there fairly good, but you don't want to lose that. This little filter or screen comes off. You're going to spray this with some carb cleaner. Alright, and then the other thing you're going to do is just start spraying all these little holes. Alright, there's not that many, there's a couple. Spray these holes with some carb cleaner, and then we're going to inspect our diaphragm and gasket. Okay, so there is actually a diaphragm and a gasket. The diaphragm is on the bottom side, and this is where that little spring goes. That's sort of like a little pump. Alright, so what you're going to want to do is check the condition of the diaphragm side. Alright, make sure that this is nice and pliable. If it's all petrified, you're going to want to replace this for sure. The other thing you're going to want to check is these little flappers. Okay, they should be fairly level. If these are bent up or down, it's probably a case for just replacing this diaphragm and gasket kit. Okay, so mine actually looks good. I think my problem is just bad fuel. So I'm gonna put this aside. And the other thing you're gonna want to do is shoot some, obviously shoot some carb spray through these little passageways and holes. Clean out your float bowl in there as well. And I'm going to take a look inside the tank. you won't be able to see, but it looks okay inside the tank there. I don't see any debris, but it's probably not a bad idea as well to take some little bit of good gas, pour it in here, swish it around, and then dump it out. And that way you know that your tank is nice and clean. Let it air dry, or spray some compressed air in there to dry it out. So when you spray in here, guys, you should see it come out. And you won't be able to see it on camera, but that's sort of your emulsion tube there. And that's it. I mean, these things are pretty simple. I'll spray out my screen. Alright, now I'm just going to blow this all down with some compressed air and put it back together. Okay guys, I'm ready to put this all back together now. Can't forget this fuel filter screen. Just line up all the gaskets and the holes. Just kind of preset those screws in there, and I will use the cordless drill just to sort of cinch them down, and then I'll use a proper Phillips screwdriver so that way I know how much tension's on there. I don't want to strip the heads on this. Okay, so what I like to do is just put the clutch way down, and then you're going to do a crisscross pattern if you can. So alright, and then I'll come back and then cinch them down. You don't have to be extremely tight, guys, just snug. Alright, that's it. So that's all there is to cleaning the this Pulsa Prime type carburetor, guys. Now that's it for the carb job on this MTD Yardworks lawnmower. And what I'm going to do next is go through the rest of my stuff to get this thing ready for sale. I'm going to take off the starter recoil, lube up the starter, going to clean and gap the spark plug, going to clean up the air filter, put that back on, going to change the oil, sharpen the blade, lubricate the wheels and the adjusters and the cable as well, the brake cable, and then I put an oil guard on the bottom side, guys. So if you want to check out how I do all the rest of that, I have many other videos on my channel that go through all of that. So thanks for joining me, guys, on this project today. And when I get it running, I'll come back and give you a sort of a preview of the final product. So once again, thanks a lot. Alright guys, so here's the final product on this Yard Machines. It turned out pretty nice. For whatever reason they had a bluish colored oil in there. I don't know if that's some sort of synthetic oil or what, but this thing had some weird fluids in it. Not something I'm used to, but anyway, she cleaned up nice. I'll just show you how she runs. I just had it running not too long ago. Alright guys, there you go. Thanks for watching, and once again, if you don't mind hitting the subscribe button, really helps me out. Thanks so much. Take care.